the Jews and the Greeks, or the Greek-Orthodox, have religious disputations. First of all, the early Christians were Greek-Orthodox. So they rejected the Jewish religion, but they accepted something. They accepted our Jewish calendar, and they accepted some other beliefs, and then they were influenced by all sorts of paganistic rituals and theologies. So they made Jesus into the Messiah. He flew up to heaven, came back in 3 days. But the Jews are accused of betraying Jesus to the Romans. Judas was looked at as a traitor. So on Easter, for example, and Good Friday, when the Greek Orthodox come out of the church, they have a procession where they burn the mannequin of Judas. And then the crowds go wild. Sometimes they would throw rocks or attack Jews. The mob prevails. Now, the lower clergy was the one that exacerbated these things. The blood libels occurred usually on Passover, at the time of Good Friday, at Easter. So the Jews are accused of killing a Christian child to get his blood to make matzot. That's a popular motif. People know about that, but they don't know about the dynamics in the sense of the Greek Orthodox sphere. So what in reality happened was the Greeks killed a Greek child, or claimed the Greek child was missing, and blamed the Jews, and that would be an excuse to create a riot. And at this time of the year, the Greek Orthodox get riled up. Once they almost burned down the old city of Jerusalem in the procession, in the ceremony after, when they pass the fire, and they get into a frenzy. They pass the fire as if it's part of the body of Jesus, and they pass it from one to another, and they light up torches, and they get into an absolute frenzy. At this point, that's when they could riot against the Jews. They lose total control. They're in a sense of spiritual ecstasy, that of the resurrection, in admonishing the resurrection of Jesus. So they accepted a Jewish spirituality, Jewish mysticism. They didn't accept Jewish law. They accepted the calendar. They accepted the idea of some of our holidays, but they did it in their own way. They didn't reject the Sabbath, but they did it their own way. And then, of course, but the Sunday was their holy day. They rejected Shabbat. They didn't reject the idea of a day of rest. They also continued Jewish fast days. So they continued, on the days that we read the Torah, and Jews traditionally also fasted, they continue the idea today of fasting on twice a week, on Monday and Thursday. For them, they don't have a complete Jewish fast like we do. You're allowed to drink water or tea, but so they do things differently. But they continue these traditions, whereas the Catholic Church doesn't continue, and Protestantism doesn't continue these things. Okay, so now when you had a blood libel, the Archbishop would issue an encyclical to condemn the blood libel, but this would continue on. Then the Sultan in the Ottoman Empire would issue an imperial edict, a firman, to condemn the blood libel, and he'd send soldiers to control the riots and the mobs. This usually wasn't preventative. It was an act to put out the fires afterward. There were people who were prosecuted for this stuff in the Ottoman Empire and also later in the Greek period, but in the Greek period it turned out that these were like show trials. So the Jews are always accused of all this malicious theological activity in the Greek press in Corfu and Athens. In the late 19th century, early 20th century, various Jews are demonized. Like there was a Jew named Kaimi, who was a lay leader from Corfu, and another Kaimi who was an artist. These people were demonized as being an insult to Greek society, as being part of this Jewish threat. And they were a small minority. They kept to themselves. They were nice people. Some of them were exemplary cultural icons and literary figures, and it totally got out of hand. And there were riots, and there were a lot of tensions over all this exacerbation by the press. Now, in Greece, since 1934, it was a full partner in illegal immigration to Palestine from the revisionist movement and from the Haganan Aliyah Bet. And many Greek shippers risked their lives and even died in accidents, bringing thousands of illegal immigrants to Palestine in the 30s, in the 40s, from Romania, during the Holocaust period, and then afterward from France and Italy from 45 to 48.